At the same time, 1, 2, everybody yell 2. 1, 2, 3.
Shut!
This is unprofessional.
You know how we grab.
Remember back in the day when we were having to clap in front of the microphones? All right, this is Mike Bledsoe back with Chris Moore, Doug
Hello.
Larson, and our guest Alex Macklin.
Hi, Alex.
How's it going?
Your discussion of your first weightlifting competition and the process of cutting weight and totaling was riveting. I enjoyed it.
All
Now,
right,
I like to hear about you shitting too.
next topic, we're actually going to focus on Doug here since he is our resident omega-3 fish oil dude expert. So tell us a little bit about some of the research you've done in that field or whatever.
For the most part, in graduate school, we were focusing on fish oil and how that moderates oxidative stress and inflammation following an acute bout of exercise. Long story short, I won't get too much into the particular research that I did in graduate school, but with that, we basically found that it doesn't really do much of anything for that.
Wait a minute, you're supposed to say, it's awesome.
For that particular study.
Cancer.
Why am I taking 20 pills a day?
So, no, fish oil on the whole, it has a crazy amount of benefits in a lot of different categories, but for our particular study, we really didn't find much efficacy for what we were hoping to find. When we measured levels...
So you're basically looking at post-workout inflammation and fish oil?
So to give a little bit of background on exercise in general, whenever you have an acute bout of exercise, you get an inflammatory response as a result of that acute bout of exercise. So if you go, train for an hour.
So acute bout of exercise means right after people work out.
Yeah. So if you go train.
Post-WOD.
Yeah. So if you go train.
Just making sure.
Yeah. Post-exercise. So if you go train, then right afterward, you're going to have heightened levels of inflammatory markers. All right. And so what we were looking at was we measured C-reactive protein, which is one of the most common markers of systemic inflammation. And what we found was that after people had supplemented with fish oil for 8 weeks, high doses of fish oil, in our case, we were just shy of 5 grams of actual fish oil product.
Omega-3?
Yeah, of EPA and DHA,
Okay.
the two omega-3s that are found in fish oil. What we found was the groups that were supplemented with fish oil versus the groups that were not supplemented with fish oil but were matched for calories, we found those groups, when they started the acute bout of exercise, had roughly half the amount of inflammation. And then after the exercise was over, say for ease sake that their systemic inflammation doubled.
Right.
But they started at half, so when they got done, their baseline levels ended up much less, roughly half of the other group, because the other group's levels doubled too.
The
But
same sorts of increases happened, but the relative amounts were different.
Yeah, exactly. They're say both groups' levels doubled, but one group started with more than the other. Mm-hmm. And our group, the group that had the fish oil supplement, they should just simply started with less. So, yes, it's a good thing, but it doesn't really attenuate the rate at which you produce inflammation post-exercise.
Well, you're going to have your total inflammation post-exercise if you supplement with fish oil is going to be less than if you hadn't.
Yeah, and that was actually already very well known in the research at the time. And so that was no big finding, but we did confirm, and we kind of put another brick in the wall, if you will, for that body of knowledge.
So, could you tell us more about? So we always talk about omega-3s. And you talked a little bit about inflammation. Can you tell us why inflammation is bad, and maybe talk about omega-6s and omega-9s?
Yeah, so to back up a little bit more than that, even. Omegas in general are polyunsaturated fats. So when you're talking about omega-3, omega-6, or omega-9, basically what you're referring to is where in the fat, and fats are just built out of long chains of carbons with hydrogens attached to them, if we're going to talk a little chemistry. And the omega basically refers to where the double bonds start on this fatty acid chain. And so that's how they classify these different types of polyunsaturated fats. Polyunsaturated by the name means that you have more than one double bond, more than 1 degree of unsaturation in that carbon chain for that fatty acid. So basically it just means that the double bonds are starting in a different spot, and depending on where these double bonds start on these fatty acids, they have different reactions in your body. So for polyunsaturated fats, you generally have 3 kinds of labels there. You have omega-3s, omega-6, and omega-9s, obviously. And omega-3s are generally thought to be the healthier of all of those types of fats.
But are all three healthy?
Yeah,
do we need them?
They're not all.
You're doing a very good job of directing the conversation, Mike Bledsoe. I see what you're doing.
I don't know anything about fish oil at all.
Oh, you're playing a dummy.
It's not very hard for me. Trust me.
Doug's going to tell us exactly probably what the difference is between these 3, 6, and 9.
Chris is my cheerleader. He helps me
Who
out.
is it? Chris CTP's got a rap group called Omega 3 to 6 to 9.
Oh no! Epic fail.
Six Mafia.
Omega 3-6.
The
Omega 3 to 6 Mafia. Is that what it is?
Omega 326 Mafia.
Omega 3 to 6 Mafia. Okay.
They're still in production. Although I've heard him rap one of his songs. It's
good.
It's pretty solid.
Coming to YouTube 2012.
Do you wanna give everyone a little bit of a taste?
No, don't get.
Oh, no.
You're gonna
Yeah.
blow.
No, I'm not gonna sing.
We were like, well, maybe it's a
I'm
plug.
for Kanye West. And Justin LeMans, our buddy up there, he's JZMA.
JCMA.
I like it. I can't wait to hear
If
the
the
album.
shit girl says videos can hit like millions of hits, this will at least get like 1,000. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right. Back
Continue,
to
Doug.
the subject, Doug. Sorry.
Sure. So basically,
Have another beer.
I'm like, where was I? Basically, your last question, if I remember correctly, was do we need omega-3s?
Or Omega 6s and 9s also. Just in general.
Well, omega-3s and 6, yeah, we do. We need both of those things. So we can't produce them on our own, so they're essential fatty acids, so we have to consume them, or more or less we'll die. We need some amount in our bodies. Even if you have super low amounts, you can still survive, but you do need some amount because you can't make them on your
And
own.
if you have very little, you'll be a dummy, right?
Yeah, pretty much, actually, especially with regard to omega-3s. So kind of on that note, with EPA and DHA, which are the two types of omega-3s that are in fish oil, DHA in particular is very important for brain function. So your brain's made out of something, and it's mostly made out of fat, and that's one of the fats that your brain is physically made out of, or just your central nervous system in general. So nerves and brain, which is basically a big pile of nerves, is made out of DHA. And actually, on the topic of other fats, omega-6, arachidonic acid, it's made out of that as well. So omega-6s aren't 100% bad for you because there's actually way more arachidonic acid in your brain and nerves than DHA. So you do need some amount of omega-6s. A lot of people give them kind of a bad name. They get a bad rap. They're kind of like carbohydrates in the fact that carbohydrates aren't really necessarily bad for you, but it's really easy to get way too much. And omega-6s are kind of in the same light. They're not really bad for you. They have some uses and they can be beneficial for sure, but oftentimes people get way too much. And so there's a lot of talk about kind of optimizing the ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s. And ideally, you'd have right around a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio there. And for the most part, in modern kind of Western society, it's more 20-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3, and we get way too much omega-6. One of the problems there is that those fatty acids are precursor molecules to what are called eicosanoids, and they basically those are the things in your body that help to produce inflammatory or anti-inflammatory molecules. So
if you have more omega-6s, you're more likely to have inflammation.
Yeah, you're much more likely to have inflammation. So not only do the omega-3s produce the anti-inflammatory molecules and omega-6s produce the inflammatory molecules, they actually in the process of converting to these other fatty acids that make those inflammatory or anti-inflammatory molecules, the exact same enzymes are used to convert the omega-3s and to convert the omega-6s. So they're competing for those enzymes at the same time. So it's not just the fact that you have one over the others, that if you have more than one of the omega-6s, for example, then they're stealing the converters from the omega-3s. And so it even further reduces the likelihood that you're going to be able to use those omega-3s because there's competitive inhibition there.
I can be helpful. Doug, what are some of the dietary sources for omega-6s? Why are we taking in so many now? Besides the fact that Ronald Reagan it can be blamed for the modern influence on diet.
Chris is
Fucking
trying to push
Richard
my
Nixon
buttons.
and Ronald Reagan.
I-
They're
I-
responsible
I
for
will-
the subsidization of our dietary habits.
I will say that you're right about Nixon, but I would blame Jimmy Carter.
You
Before
would.
I-
You
yeah.
you would.
Is that when the food pyramid came out?
You would. Jimmy's a good man, a good Christian man, a preacher, and this is what you say about him. He was a bastion of civil liberties.
Good intentions.
I'm trying to provoke you. It's not working.
Pave the way to hell.
It's not working too good tonight. I'll
Or
try
was
again
it
later.
that the road to hell is paved with good intentions? Is that what it is?
The bones of Jimmy Carter, if you had your way.
Yeah, sure.
Wait, Doug's going to tell us why we has so many omega-6. Why?
All right, so
Besides chicken nuggets. I know that's a problem.
did you see that's probably in there?
To derail this shit further, did you see the news story that last week where the girl who was
who only
15
ate
years
chicken
old
nuggets.
who's only
Yeah.
ever eaten chicken
Yeah.
McNuggets?
They had to put her on vitamins because she was.
She was about to drop dead.
Yeah.
Oh my
She had an addiction.
Was she
apparently.
picky?
And you know what? And you know what? She
Picky
wasn't.
much?
She wasn't fat either.
How much ammonium hydroxide was this chick consuming?
Probably
Well, shit, all she's
severely
getting is
malnourished.
Yeah,
protein.
she was
The
extremely malnourished.
The pink protein slime that makes up those. So that's one thing that's causing the problem. But Doug's gonna tell us a whole slew of other ingredients that are gonna cause the problem. Go ahead, Doug. Sorry.
I did
Doug.
see the picture of the pink slime.
Yeah, they quit. They only now quit putting that in the food. Only now.
I do actually have one question for you because so if animals, I know I'm like jumping the gun here, but I don't want to forget my question. I'm awfully forgetful.
You could take notes.
Yeah. So from what I understand, grain-fed animals have a higher ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. So if we were to eat grains ourselves, would the fats in our body have a higher percentage of omega-6s than omega-3s?
Yeah. It turns out it matters what you ate, if that makes sense.
Right.
So the animals that you're eating, it does matter what they eat also. In particular, it matters with respect to their fatty acid profile, as you were suggesting. So corn and other grains tend to be very high in omega-6s. Anytime you're at the grocery store and you're buying something that you don't tend to think about as being a fat, if you're buying corn oil and you think corn's a carbohydrate, how does it have oil in it? Then generally, for the most part, it's going to be super high in omega-6s. So
Hence inflammatory.
and highly inflammatory. That's right. And so
Bad.
to compare carbohydrates and omega-6s one more time, white flour and white sugar and anything that's white, people often will suggest that isn't good for you with respect to carbohydrates or processed anythings. And oils are the same way. They call them white oils. So if you have vegetable oils or safflower oils or sunflower oils or any type of processed oil where it's it's been bleached and deodorized and processed to a super high degree at super high temperatures, then it's bound to be very high in omega-6 and have almost zero nutrients in it. So it's really easy to get too much of that stuff because that's what we fry almost all of our food in. It's super crazy cheap because it's made out of grains also. In a lot of cases, it's made out of corn or some of these
It
other...
goes for heavily processed olive oil too, right? If you heavily
Yeah,
process much of anything.
Yeah, Chris, I saw you post something about that. What did you say?
It was a news piece from NPR because I'm very smart and liberal-minded, and that's where I get all my information, all of it, nothing else. No, but they made the quite reasonable point. I think the book they were speaking about didn't get great reviews, probably too heavy-handed, too much of that side. But the news story just was good for pointing out the fact that if you go to Schnucks and you're shopping for olive oil and you think, okay, I want olive oil because olive oil is better than all these other oils. So far, so good. You got that much down, and you see. So I'm gonna make a purchase. I see the $18 a bottle olive oil. Well, I don't want to pay $18 for fucking 2 cups of olive oil in a bottle. That's crazy. On the far left, it's like Schnucks gallon of olive oil for $1. You go, oh, I get that. It'll last me all year. But it's like doing exercise. I exercise all the time. I don't lose weight. I don't get it. Well, you're on a treadmill, but what are you doing on a treadmill? Just being on a treadmill doesn't mean you are exercising or training appropriately. You're just doing the thing. You can lift a barbell, but how are you lifting it? Same goes with diet. You're eating olive oil, but how is the olive oil processed?
Well, from what I understand,
What's the
olive
quality?
I'm not a fat expert, but isn't olive oil a lot of omega-6 and not as much omega-3 as we'd like?
Well, it's mostly omega-9, which is a pretty neutral oil.
So you were so wrong. Where do you get your information?
Doug.
Fox News?
Doug was telling me.
FoxNews.com/nutrition.
News.
Doug told me wrong.
Doug's the faction expert in nutrition. He told me. I believed him.
Pretty much.
Go on, Doug.
Actually, don't know anything about olive oil.
Yeah, the omega-3s are going to be very, very sparse, but there's probably a little bit of omega-6. I couldn't tell you a percentage. If I was to guess, I'd probably say like 15%, maybe 20.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 25 at the absolute most. And then the rest of it's pretty much oleic acid, which is omega-9. Which again is a pretty neutral oil. It's something.
So it doesn't do anything for us at all.
Not really. It
omega-3
really is like it doesn't really, as far as inflammation or affecting your cholesterol or anything like that. Like,
But we'll burn it for fuel, right?
If I understand you
sure,
correctly,
you can burn it for fuel. It probably won't cause you to deposit any extra body fat. Aside from just having extra calories in general. But people used to think it was really, really good for you, and over the last couple of years, it's just kind of been
So if you combine,
like sloughed off
if
to the
you
side.
combine
if this-
olive oil with noodles, you're not doing yourself any favors.
if this is a 1980s teen drama movie, omega-3 is the hero, the John Cusack. Omega-6 is the guy who's racing you down the hill in the big tension-filled ski race at the end. And omega-9s are the guys who start out cheering for the bad guy, but you win. They go, hey man, we're glad you won in the end. That's how you describe the situation.
Perfect analogy.
Boom.
Well done.
Some of us don't understand the acid words and the fancy chemistry analogy. So I got John Cusack movies work just as good.
I think that probably works out for most of our audience too. So
Yeah. Eat more John Cusack.